Welcome to this podcast, exposing the reality of the big lick. And we have been fighting on the front lines for over 10 years now, been assaulted, ended up in the emergency room, all for being the voice for these horses. Years ago, horses had a natural ability. They were shown for their natural ability, but things started changing.
They started changing for the worse, obviously. And we're talking specifically about the Tennessee walking horse industry and their goal of getting their horses to perform a certain way.
An artificial gait that is only achieved through abuse and suffering. You can't Google or search or find books that are printed today on how to train a horse to do this big lick, which you see them doing in these horse shows.
Well, and you can't go on YouTube. There's no videos. There's no video, tutorials on how to train a horse to do the big lick. It's it's kept a secret.
It's kept a secret because it's so abusive. The USDA has spent tens of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars, trying to put procedures in place to catch people soring horses. But the problem is they are catching them after these horses have been sored. The PAST Act needs to happen, ending the stacks and the chains once and for all, because that's where these horses are being abused. And I had to go back and buy old books that actually are the only books out there that tell you what needs to be done. And what I've found in these books are absolutely appalling. And we're about to go step by step through them and show you some of the things and talk about what's happening. If you're listening to this as a podcast, you might want to watch this later because we will be showing pictures from these books. This book is done by Joe Webb, and I looked him up, and there's lots of Tennessee treasure history. This is an amazing trainer. He was the world's best trainer, all this stuff. He's still being praised, and that's where I know right there how corrupt this is. He clearly talks about soring horses in here, ingredients of concoctions to soar them.
And how to hide it from people.
And how to hide it from people. And so much of what's happening with these horses today, it all stems from these books where people are learning, oh, this is how you do it. And in this book, there's a little clip art of this is how they used to be. And it's a Tennessee walking horse doing a more natural gait. And you do all these things and look at them now, the big lick. And that is exactly how they look today.
And I looked at it real briefly just before we jump in. And one of the things is if you want to do it humanely, this is how you do it. This is a humane method.
Well, it wasn't even for the big lick. It was for their tails that they strap up and cut their tendons and stuff. This stuff is the things of just barbaric torture devices for horses. There's lots of different disciplines out there who do not nice things to horses, but the Tennessee Walking group basically took it to such an extreme that they were literally making a patent and patented it within the U.S. of this torture device for horses. So we're going to dive in here and start going through this book that explains it, and it's absolutely horrible. As we dive into this book, we want to tell you there's just really horrific things that are happening, and there's these reasons that we're protesting. There's reasons we're stepping out. We're being the voice. We're putting ourselves in situations that literally land us in the emergency room and in the surgery, trying to fix things that these abusers do. If they'll abuse horses, they'll abuse humans, and it's really horrific. So why don't you talk a little bit about the name of this book?
So the name of this book is The Care and Training of the Tennessee Walking Horse by Joe Webb. Now, Joe Webb was, as we had a very prominent, he kind of really got a lot of it going, and he literally won 4 championships?
I think 3 championships. He got the achievement of the trainer of the year. This was a celebrated big lick trainer. He's still talked about in high regard. And if you have somebody abusing horses, you don't talk about them in high regard. But he is an idol to them. And
if, as they like to say, it doesn't happen anymore, they should come out and they should absolutely the Tennessee Walking Horse Association should condemn this book and say we will never do any of those practices again, but they won't.
Well, the reality is, if they weren't soaring them, they weren't using stacks and chains, these horses would be having their natural abilities and they'd be being shown for their natural abilities. The only way to get the big lick is through abuse and suffering.
Well, let's dive into the book and
behind closed barns, basically.
Yeah, let's dive into the book. We have 2 copies here.
Okay, this is a later version, so he added more in it.
And Tawnee doesn't read, but she went through and she actually, I mean, she put all these sticky notes everywhere.
Sticky notes everywhere because it's just so horrific. So we're gonna, Jason's gonna read some of these sections to you.
Yeah, absolutely. This is in chapter 7, Riding Your Horse. And I'm starting out here on page 69. It says, if your horse is wearing leg bandages, I would suggest you remove them first for this reason. If you're going to use a chain guard or lubricant before you put the chains or boots on him, this will give it time to penetrate the skin and be more effective.
And what is making it more effective? That means it's penetrating the skin, it's burning the horse's legs.
Pull the bowstring on the leg wrap, and I would suggest, unless you are in a great hurry, that you turn the strings in and roll the wrap up as you unroll it from the horse's leg. By a slight pull against the horse's leg, you can keep it tight. Also turn the bandage and roll it up as you unroll it from the leg. If you put them up neatly, they are ready to go back on the horse. If you have a bandage roller, use it. The chain guard formula I use consists of the following ingredients: 1 pound of sulfur, 1 pound of alum powder, 2 pounds of lard, 1 pint of camphorated oil, 2 tablespoons of salt, 2 pounds of tannic acid, and 1 pint of mineral oil. If you do not have access to these ingredients, a very economical lubricant to use is motor oil applied with a paintbrush.
So sickening. And we're just going to keep jumping through this book. And through this book, you know, it shows you, it's very, very detailed into everything. And I literally just got this yesterday and went through and started putting sticky notes. And I'm like, we're protesting here this week and at the celebration. And this is what this guy made this book about, is how can you win at the celebration, which is their...
And he did it.
And he did.
Multiple times.
Multiple times. And he did it through abuse and suffering to horses.
One thing I'd like to point out here is this horse's hoof, and we'll show you the image, but this horse's hoof is just terrible.
The hills are extremely long.
Yeah. And he's like, correct way to trim a colt's feet. No, it's not.
They are basically, we're just treating horses, and they still do, like, this is a machine, and we need to try to get this look out of this machine. And this is a living creature. So you have stacks, old stacks. I mean, they're very similar to the same stacks. I mean, that looks the exact same, basically, as what we have sitting in my office where I talk to people about this. And then there's just these really barbaric chains over here.
Brackets with chains. So this is trying to keep them from hitting the legs and the back, like letting the chain come in contact with only the front part of the pastern, protecting from behind. Or on some horses, making them reach better. Can be adjusted, go all the way around, but high enough to be above the cornet band. So they just have these brackets holding the chains up higher on the legs. It's just...
I'm sure these things are still being used. And what's happening is horses are only being inspected at the shows. So you could have trainers using all these barbaric things that it is what it took to get a horse to do this really big lick, this artificial lick. These things can be happening to these horses, but it's on private property. It's behind closed barn doors. And they're like, it's not happening anymore. Well, the only way this guy could get it to happen was through abuse and suffering. Horses don't naturally do this. And there's just photos after photos. These, the photo here, like, if I got this horse from an auction, like, I could see where there's open, crusty wounds from soaring in these pictures, but they didn't have it in place then to prevent that from happening. So in this photo, you can see literally just open areas where the hairs come off. And you know, a lot of these, when we're protesting and stuff, you should have seen it in the olden days. We don't do that anymore. No, they just got really good at hiding it from the USDA.
And that's all they have to do is hide it for that short amount of time that they're in the inspection before the show.
And there's so many photos in here of, you know, the proper way of doing it. And he even tried to make these removable stacks that he could have a horse in a shoe and then be able to put these removable stacks on. Like, he was just trying to invent every way possible to manipulate a horse. And one thing the Tennessee walking horses have, and you'll hear me talk about it a lot when we're doing buyout and we have Tennessee walking horses come through, is they've had their tail tendons cut. And there's a whole chapter on here.
It's called Setting the Tail, Chapter 10.
And it's really barbaric. It's just horrific.
So it starts off. Many people ask how you break a horse's tail. I think that this idea has grown from horsemen talking about the breakdown. You do not break the tail, you only sever the leaders.
So you literally are severing.
Yeah.
You're taking a knife. And so it shows a horse, it's literally all tied up, and what you need to do this, and
he's not a veterinarian.
How to prepare the area for this surgery. Has like medical diagrams of exactly where you're going to need to cut these tendons.
And then showing how to cut it.
As pictures how to cut it. Like,
this is medical procedures.
This is happening to horses. Like, young 3-year-old Tennessee walking horses, we get them in here, their hind ends are all broken down and like they're thrown away. And I can lift their tail tendons up because they've had this procedure. Like, their tails just pop right up because their tendons have been cut.
So right here, take your thumb and press firmly on each side of the top of his tail. As you press down with your thumb on your left hand, wiggle the tail back and forth with your right hand, and you'll feel the ligaments move. Then take your knife and clip it in two. Move over to the other side and press down with your right thumb and wiggle the tail with your left hand. This will make it possible to know where to make the incision. In most cases, if you carefully make these incisions, you can evenly encircle the tail. After this is done, move to the left side of the horse. Take his tail in the left hand and the breakdown in your right hand and fold the breakdown in the position it should be. In most cases, the vertebrae will slip, giving you a good loose breakdown. And it just goes on.
It just goes on and on. Like, this is extremely barbaric.
I can only imagine the pain level.
And the pain level for these poor horses to have to go through.
Because there's a reason, we'll show you the picture again here. There's a reason this horse has to be tied up.
Hobbled at its hocks and like a harness on it, so it can't move. It can't protect itself.
Can't get away
from this. And it's sickening. Like, show horses for their natural ability. Stop cutting their tail tendons. Stop putting them in stacks and chains. If stacks and chains were outlawed through the PAST Act, these horses could be shown for their natural abilities. They wouldn't need chains hitting their sensitive skin.
It gets worse. Raise the root of the tail. As you push the tail back, you'll see a little V shape. Stay out of this area as it contains an artery. Get just above this, right in the middle, and make an incision just under the skin. Go around the bone and then go into the muscle. Cut away from the bone. While you are in there, be sure you get the entire muscle. If you leave any portion, it might knit back, drawing the tail to that side, and will make a crooked tail. You can make sure that you have the muscle severed by going all the way through the inside the skin, and you can see the edge of the blade through the skin. Just make sure you don't come through the skin. The size of the muscles vary with different horses, so be sure you get it all. If the horse moves and you have to remove the knife, use the same opening and get the muscle. You have the incision, so do a thorough job. After you have severed the muscle on the right, using the same opening, go to the left and get the left muscle using the same procedure. It's,
a lot of this stuff is being passed down from generation to generation on how to do this, but this is their manual on how to do it. And this guy had his own riding academy set up, and absolutely just despicable.
And then it shows how to set it with the bandaging the breakdown, and
I mean, this poor horse's tail is literally like, you know, it's a bone in there. Like, it's not meant to bend over, and like they just so then they go into setting the tail in this harness brace type thing, and I see these at Tennessee walking horse shows.
Right.
These horses' tails are put up, and this is just a horrific little diagram of photos that show you exactly like this is the device you need. This is how you're going to put the tail up and how you're going to cinch it down in there and basically literally just like strap this tail into there and then bend it over. And at the end of all this torture, you have a tail that's ready to be on a show horse. And like, it's so horrific. And this is happening today. Like every time I go to the big lick shows, every time they're driving past us at the protest, I can see their tails all already prepped up, and it's so despicable.
But everything they do to these horses is simply an uncomfortable and painful situation. Like,
and they're like, oh, we love our horses. Well, if you love them, you wouldn't be sticking a knife inside their tail and chopping up muscles and like all this stuff. You would be appreciating them for being a horse. So this is, I think this just really shows what is happening here to these horses. So, you know, this is like the natural ability, and then you go farther forward, and you know, it got better the more they were torturing them, and then wow, they have the big lick. So I'm going to let you kind of go through what their little.
It says several years ago, this lick was sufficient, and it's just a horse
it's more
kind
of
of walking.
a horse walking. Obviously, it has a little bit more of a higher gait. Tennessee walking horses have a beautiful natural gait. I think they should be shown and celebrated for their natural abilities. And then the next little...
and what I wanted to point out, though, was that they
did
cut the tail there.
Yep.
As the breed progressed, the top horse had a little bigger lick, stepping a little higher in front and striding a little more behind. As you study this figure, you can see a distinct difference. The horse has a still large lick, coming up and reaching more in front and still striding more behind. And then looky here now, this is the big lick. And this is exactly what their judges give ribbons for. And
it's exactly how they look today. And there's no way to achieve that look without abuse and suffering. And, you know, here's a magazine that has a horse doing the exact same stance, and there's only one way to achieve this, and it's through soaring, it's through stacks and chains.
And multiple grand champion winner Joe Webb put it all down on paper how to do it.
As we go through this book, it's just really upsetting to think about how someone
I wonder if he goes into how old a horse needs to be to start working.
He says 18 months.
Well, here's okay. So pacing type. The pace is a lateral movement, ambling or shuffling, causing the rider to move from side to side. If your colt is the pacing type, sometimes by using chains or chains and boots, you can get a good flat walk and just gradually carry him on into the running walk, keeping him out of a pace. If he starts pacing, slow him back. Often, this is where you get good head motion which carries on into the running walk. When the speed is reached where he loses his head action, slow him back until the motion is resumed. Let me mention again that when using chains or boots, to use a chain guard lubrication. We will give you a mixture for a stable of horses and you can cut it down accordingly. 2 pounds of alum powder, 2 pounds of sulfur powder, 2 pounds of pure lard, 1 pint of camphorated oil, 1 pint of mineral oil, 2 pounds of tannic acid, and 4 tablespoons of salt. And that's their lubrication ingredients.
But within that lubrication, they're like, oh, it's just a lube to keep, and I've heard them say that, oh, we have something there so the chain doesn't rub into the hair. I'm like, yeah. But in that lubrication, they have acid, they have all these things that the USDA is testing for. So what's happening is they're storing them at home prior to the shows. Then they bring it, they put all the other stuff over it, and like, oh, it's just a lubricant.
Rub this in thoroughly before putting the chains or boots on. Don't be wasteful. The part that runs down on the hoof doesn't help at all and looks bad to spectators. When this happens, rub it off before showing the horse in public. Rub the mixture in good and it will toughen the skin and keep the hair growing neatly and naturally. I would suggest that you not use this mixture and rubber guards together, as it has a heating effect that makes hair come off occasionally. Use the rubber guard to keep your horse clean. However, a lot of horses will not reach as far with the guard as they do with greasing the back and front of the pastern joint. There is a much more economical grease if you are unable to get the ingredients listed. It will work as long as you don't have a raw place on your horse's foot. This is motor oil, preferably used mixed with sulfur powder to a thick, soupy consistency. It needs to be rubbed well into the hair. In many cases, this will take off old scar tissue. Used motor oil with sulfur.
This stuff is happening today, and they're training them from the very beginning. Spectators won't like this. Mm-hmm. Don't show your horse in public like this. Mm-hmm. And they're following this to this day. Yeah. They keep these horses in the barn. They bring them out right before the show. They don't want people to see what's happening behind barn doors.
And they keep them out. They keep people out of the horse area.
If they weren't doing this, they'd be like, come on back, see our horses. You would be able to walk around like you can at every other horse show and be like, wow, look at the beautiful horses. I mean, I've been in racing barns. Nobody's trying to hide when I'm walking down. Now, there's really bad things happening in racing barns, and they keep getting busted and exposed. There's corruption everywhere, but this corruption is protected by law enforcement. This protection is it's a horrible thing that's happening here in Tennessee, and it's being celebrated as a Tennessee tradition, and it's got to stop. And the fact that all three of us, Justin and Jason and myself, ended up in an emergency room because they didn't want us videoing horses in slow motion. And the guy's like, you can't video my daughter. The event was being live streamed. His daughter was being filmed, and he was at a public park. And I mean, we know that they're getting upset when they'll go to physical violence to attack us, to try to silence us.
Well, that was good, but this is terrifying. It's talking about putting a pound or two of lead in his hoof. Why do they need lead on these shoes? The main concern at first is to get the horse to reaching. Teaching him to come up in front can come after he has developed a good reach. In cases where they're coming up enough but folding too much and need to reach more, fasten the amount of weight you need to the front of his foot. It may take half a pound or up to 3 pounds on some. The longer you ride him in this gait and get him tired and lop-legged, the more he will give way to the weight as he moves forward. This weight will make him reach forward and flip his foot forward, going against the weight, causing his heel to hit first. With this movement, it gives him more reach. After he gets in the habit of flipping his foot forward against the weight and landing on his heel, the sooner he will do this after each workout. When he is used to reaching in the flat walk or slow running walk, then you can speed him up and get the same movements.
I've seen a lot of training books. I've seen a lot of books that are teaching you how to train horses, and a lot of the methods are not great. I have never seen so much barbaricness in one
Well, just
book.
Purposeful cruelty.
Yes.
Maybe we should stop insulting barbarians because they didn't even do this to their horses.
I know in one part of this book, I think it's actually a little bit earlier, they literally had the horse tied in the stall with a tire around its neck, hoisted up in the air to teach it to keep its head upright. I mean, what they put these horses through to try and get this artificial ability out of them is just ridiculous.
Horse with blinders on, ready to be trained with walking cane. So this is the section, it's page 239 on the walking cane. For years and years, horsemen have said that a horse had to be built a certain way to get certain movements. A certain slope well back in the shoulders to be able to reach good, or they had to be built a certain way to get up off the ground. I'm going to attempt to tell you of an experience that I came up with to disprove this theory. It may be easier for them to reach if they're built a certain way, or it might be easier for them to get up off the ground if they have a certain conformation. But after I explain this to you, you'll see you can start them off in the habit of coming up and reaching, even though it may be more difficult for some than for others. But they can all come up and reach because, after all, we all know they are creatures of habit. It takes longer to develop some than others because some have greater ability. Now, I will tell you how I happened on this method. Many years ago, we used to start our colts blindfolded. We would ride them on rough ground through weeds and different kinds of footing. This would make them step high and reach out because they did not know what to expect on the next step. You'd be surprised how quickly they get accustomed to different kinds of footing, riding them up and down slopes. The only kind of footing they never got used to with a blind on is riding them down a rather steep slope because they never know when their feet are going to hit the flat ground. This gives them a beautiful way of going in front because they are reaching out and hitting the ground very lightly. As you might say, a cat walking around with paper tied to his feet. A few years ago, I started my colts out again with blinds. The only place I had to ride them was in the center of the arena, back and forth across Bermuda grass. But after a few days, even though the colts were doing well and starting to hit a good lick, they got used to the footing and seemed to know just what to expect. I had a landscaping company bring 12 loads of dirt and dump them in the circle behind the barn, just barely smoothing the top over with the tractor blade. This gave us a chance to ride them around and around and up and down over the knolls. It was amazing how quickly they learned to walk up and down over the uneven ground without making a bobble, with a beautiful way of going. Soon winter came and started raining, so we had to move inside the hallway of the barn. We had plenty of room, but real level footing, which would defeat the purpose of the blind. So, I'm trying to see where it talks about the cane here. One day I was standing in the entrance watching one of the colts work down on one end of the barn. I called to two of the men to get behind the barn and bring in some of the posts we had stacked there and to space them out in the straw. While they were going to get the posts, I started down to where the colt was and passed by a broom leaning in a corner. I reached and got the broom and took it with me. First, I laid the broom in the straw and had the rider ride over the broom. Occasionally, he would hit the broom and make an extra high and long step. Then I picked the broom up and held it out in front of him, just a little below his knees. As he would hit it, he would take a big, long step or two. A few times he knocked it out of my hand. After he did this a few times, I picked the broom up and walked along beside him, letting him bump it across the chain and letting most of the lick be on his hoof. He started hitting a tremendous lick, reaching as high as his leg would reach, shaking his head and walking up under himself behind. I was so overjoyed that I had come up with something that I hollered and told the men to forget the post. I had a breakthrough. After using the broom a while, I changed to a very good, heavy hickory walking stick, which was much easier to handle.
So you blindfold a poor horse, and you literally sit there whacking on it. And by this time in the book, I'm like, this is all so barbaric and so ridiculous. And I turned the page, and my mind was literally like, can it get any worse?
You're talking about the patent for the Webb mechanical horse trainer.
Yes. This is a U.S. patent for a Tennessee walking horse torture device. And I have never quite seen anything like it. It's basically a treadmill device where they would literally hook the horse's feet onto this mechanical machine. And
well, this right here says it. The horse trainer enables you to break a horse quicker than is possible to break him any other way.
And they're breaking him to do this artificial gait. And in this figure 12 here, you can actually see where they would connect this onto the horse's feet, and like this machine would force them to go super. This, like, from a medical perspective, I'm like, these horses are gonna be breaking their legs. I can't imagine what could happen to these horses. And then there's straps to put over their legs to prevent them from moving a certain way. Like, Tennessee walking horses, the big lick is so founded on such horrific abuse. Just for that, it should be completely, like, people would be like, we don't want to be associated with that anymore. No more stacks and chains. This is horrific. If we love horses, we're going to show them for their natural abilities.
I'm going to just go ahead and read these few paragraphs because it's just infuriating to anybody who actually likes or loves horses. The horse trainer enables you to break a horse quicker than is possible to break him in any other way. It will set his head in any position you desire, put him in motion, and show his natural ability almost instantly. In other words, you can see his potential quicker than any other way possible, even though it may take a period of time to develop this potential. But it lets you know whether or not he has the ability to perform. You can let them work on their own while changing to different speeds with a turn of a dial with your fingers. You can move the head back and forth and let a rider mount them while the horse is on the trainer. You can also take a trained horse, put him in the trainer, and train an inexperienced rider, talking to them constantly while standing close by. There is no way to build stamina any faster while making them perform the gaits you desire. If the horse wants to be wild, mean, or stubborn, he might as well forget it. There's never been a way before where you could stand with a control in your hand 3 or 4 feet in front or back of him and make him perform all he is capable of doing at any speed. You can watch all his movements as long as you like for corrective shoeing. There are attachments on the machine which you can attach to the horse for muscle building and other therapeutic purposes as well as gait changing. This not only works on a walking horse, but will work on any breed with any gait they're capable of performing, especially thoroughbreds. Even though there are many, many uses for this machine, I will say one of the outstanding things it does for any breed is give them consistency in performance. Really, there's no other way to put it in words. You have to see it for yourself. Trainers who come and spend some time and see it say, there is no way I can explain it. No one will believe me.
And we have the U.S. patent right here.
I sure hope he doesn't still sell these or somebody still sells these.
So this is the background and the summary of it.
So this invention relates to a horse training apparatus, and more particularly to an apparatus for training a horse to perform particular gaits. In the training of horses, particularly a Tennessee walking horse, the horse is taught to perform his various exercises by the trainer, riding astride the horse. Unless there are 2 trainers, one astride the horse and one on the ground, it is difficult for a single trainer astride the horse to observe the progress of the horse and the appearance of the gaits. Horse exercise devices, including an enclosure for the horse with an endless treadmill, forming the floor of the enclosure upon which the horse walks or runs in place for exercise, are well known in the art as illustrated. Anyway, it's just a lot of patent numbers there. However, to applicants' knowledge, there's nothing in the prior art to teach a horse the various gaits while walking within an enclosure, including various types of attachments connecting the various parts of the horse's anatomy, particularly legs, to the enclosure. And it is therefore the object of this invention to provide an apparatus for teaching or training horses various gaits, particularly the gait of a Tennessee walking horse, while the horse is walking relative to an enclosure frame, with the trainer having the option of observing the progress of the horse without being astride the horse.
I have never seen one of these, but it wouldn't surprise me if somewhere in some barn somebody's using this.
I mean, Joe Webb says it's the best way to do it.
When you go on Big Lick things and you're researching this stuff and investigating and you're like, oh, I just love Joe Webb.
Let's talk about Joe Webb, who is potentially one of the most influential, if not the most influential trainer in our industry. He literally wrote the book on how to train and take care of Tennessee walking horses, and trainers are still referencing it to this day. He also hosted a riding school that taught many, many, many young people in our breed how to ride properly and get the most out of their Tennessee walking horses.
The top shows you'll be vying for the 1987 World Grand Championship crown. We'd like you to look out for Country Mark at the celebration in Shelbyville, Tennessee this fall. Next rider is Randy Spears from Columbus, Indiana.
why would you be saying that about somebody it's animal abuse? Like, soaring is illegal, it's animal abuse, and he is like explaining it to the umpth degree of how to torture horses. You should renounce this and be like, there was horrible things happening. We as an organization are not going to stand for this. Horses will be showed flat shod. Like, how much better would it be for the Tennessee walking groups to take a stand and this past act not even have to happen because they renounce it? But they're not going to, because they're addicted to abuse.
Another thing to be considered is how long it takes you to warm up your horse. If he is braced and ready 30 minutes beforehand, this gives you time to lead or ride him to where you are going to warm him up. This leaves you 25 minutes before showtime, giving you 5 to 10 minutes to warm him up and to adjust your boots or chains, or you may need to change them because this is your last chance. Tighten the girth and get the curb chain adjusted like you want it. After you have checked everything over well and made your adjustments and have all your tire well in place and your number on your back, you have 10 to 15 minutes left for your horse to rest and both of you to relax before making the appearance you have been working toward.
And when we go to these shows, they always bring them in. Their tails are braced, like they're all fancied, readied up, and they're still following what this guy put in place. So we read earlier about how they would cut the tail tendons and how barbaric that was. But they decided to have a humane option.
So it's page 266, illustration 214. Humane wigtail, which saves the tail from being cut. It is tied on loosely to the horse's natural tail, extending about 8 inches above the root of the tail and bending downward into the natural tail. This type of wig saves time and money and does not impair the horse for pleasure use. In other words, if you do the opposite of what this just says, it says cutting it is inhumane, and that once the tail is cut, they're no longer useful for pleasure use. That's what it says.
So this is kind of just, there's a portion of this book towards the back that is just terminology, basically. Like, if this is what happens, like, this is what it is. And, but then they also talk about, like, this basically academy where people could come and learn how to torture Tennessee walking horses. And this is what, like, all of this whole Big Lick stuff was founded on, was, you know, when people wanted to try to control and manipulate an animal to the point that they'd stick them in a machine that would attach to their body parts and force them to perform in a way that is completely unnatural. It's just,
So this is in the Q&A. What do you mean when you say a horse burns himself? The horse is hitting his ankle with his foot or other ankle in the rear, causing a cut or sore place on his ankle. That happens so much in the show ring.
and I know Jason's documented Tennessee walking horses that are bleeding in the show ring, and they're like, well, he just nicked himself. Do you think he'd nick himself if he had a regular shoe on and a chain? It's possible, but when you put basically high heels on horses, you're going to be running into a whole lot of issues.
Do you ever weight the hind feet? Yes, occasionally, if more swingy gait is desired. After this gait is reached, the weight should be removed. So they even put weights in the back feet. Would you consider using shackles if a horse still won't break after using extreme weight? Yes, if the horse is outstanding in everything but that. How long does it take the tail to heal once it's been cut? If the operation has been performed under sanitary conditions and the tail is given proper care afterwards, about 4 or 5 days. Do you weight, in other words, do you put weights on? Do you weight the horse's front feet to make him pick them up? Yes, as a rule, the more weight on the horse's feet, the higher he raises them, unless he is completely overloaded, because the horse naturally goes against weight.
I know one stack that we have is over 8 pounds. Is like, people are like, oh, they're big animals. If a little tiny fly lands on them, they know. Putting stacks, chains, chemicals, like, oh, these poor horses. And that's what we're fighting against. And sometimes it seems like just a complete uphill battle forever. But awareness, people sharing what's actually happening, and everything that I've seen in this book, I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's all happening today, because I get horses from auctions with open, crusty wounds from soaring and chemical burns. I see tail tendons, horses that had their tail tendons cut. Like, it's all so horrific. And the only way to achieve that big lick that I see everywhere at all these big shows with these trainers is through abuse and suffering. If they could do it humanely, why aren't they showing it?
What are the advantages and disadvantages of cutting the tail? It dresses up the horse even when he is exhibited in the stall with the set on. A good many horses will work better if the tail is up over the back, especially in the back end. The main disadvantage is the time element. The cut tail requires a good deal of care. Nothing about the main disadvantage is the pain and suffering they put on the horse. No, just time, because you have to care for it. Question, do you have to cut the horse's tail in order to show him? No, you are permitted to leave the tail uncut and use a humane tail for showing if you desire, but it must appear to be up over the back. Question, what are the advantages and disadvantages of the humane tail? With the humane tail, the tail requires much less care than it would if it were cut. If the humane tail is not secured with extreme care, it may slip off in the show ring. With careful adjustments, it stays in place and can look as good as a set tail. A disadvantage is that if the horse happens to be lacking in his back end, his lick will not be helped by the brace as it would if his tail were cut and braced.
So, right there it's saying, like, to get the best big lick possible, you're going to have to cut the horse's tail, tendon, and scrunch it up there. And how extremely painful. Like, everything involving around this big lick is pain and agony. And he's showing big fancy pictures of his barn and all this stuff because he's out there making money off of abusing animals.
Question, page 289. How old should a horse be before you begin training him for the show ring? Answer, he should be at least 18 months old. Even at this age, he must be well developed before it is advisable to ride him, and then he should be brought along slowly. Work him only a very few minutes a day.
And that's talking about people riding them. Like, we've seen pictures of horses that look younger than 18 months. Not very long ago, within the last few years, people riding horses, but they're showing them performing the big lick as 2-year-olds.
And then Joe Webb's riding camp.
The riding camp is basically a place where people could come and learn how to torture horses. You could go there and see the horse machine that they could stick a horse in. And if you go to his barn, you could see all these different ways of torturing horses. And to this day, he's praised as one of their most amazing top trainers, blah, blah, blah. And how he describes in this book is the only way to achieve this really big lick, which looks the exact same from this book as what they're wanting for these shows today. It's only achieved through abuse and suffering, and it must stop.
As you can see from everything we've read, and I was just touching this, this book is not available easily, but we actually have 2 copies here again, and just reading through it, it's like, this is just such a industry built on abuse. This is one of their heroes of the Tennessee walking horse industry, writing a book, and actually 3 editions at least, of how to abuse horses. And he specifically says it's not humane to cut the tail, because he calls the other method of not cutting it the humane method. So he knows it's inhumane to cut the tail, but he doesn't care. And if he doesn't care about that, and he doesn't care about putting sulfur powder filled used motor oil, he specifies used motor oil on the horse's legs.
With a mixture of that sulfur. I'm like, so barbaric, but this stuff is happening.
And it's still happening.
We have a $10,000 reward because it is illegal, but it's happening behind closed doors on private property. Tennessee, actually, I was told by one animal control officer who is an animal control officer for a very, very long time in Tennessee, that as an animal control officer, they could go out and investigate horses, they can investigate cattle. But one of the folks in high office of Tennessee got busted by an animal control officer for severely abusing horses. And they stopped that by changing the laws and saying, well, livestock are to be investigated by the
Department of Agricultural Crimes Unit only. And there's a few agents that work in that, and they're all bought off, or they're all silenced, or they're all kept from investigating big lick animal abuse.
Because they set up this program to protect people abusing Tennessee walking horses. So if you think, oh, somebody's abusing a horse, you have to call like your sheriff department. It has to escalate up to the agriculture crimes unit, and by then everything is
Fine.
perfectly fine, and we don't.
Or they just don't even investigate.
Or they don't investigate, but everything's perfectly fine. We don't know what you're talking about, but it gave a buffer to prevent people from being busted for abusing Tennessee walking horses. And it's really a shame that Tennessee has coddled animal abuse and tried to be, it's a celebration. It's a Tennessee tradition. The Tennessee walking horse is a beautiful horse. Let's celebrate them for who they are, not try to force them into being an artificial gait that only judges think is pretty.
Heavy chains and burning pain, all for a ribbon and a name. But a gentle soul was never made for cruelty dressed as fame. Let them walk free, let them be strong. Their steps are honest, their hearts belong. No more soaring, no more lies. Raise your voice and open your eyes. So help us now.